Hi folks, how are you doing? In the sixth round of the chess Olympiad we saw, among other very beautiful games, very brutal attack on the board by Alexander Grischuk. Really, I think one of the most beautiful games we've seen here on this Olympiad, at least at the top board, because I'm sure that most people like me are missing very beautiful games because they're only watching the top board, but that's another story. Today you're gonna see a game between, as I said, Alexander Grischuk with white pieces, a superstar almost at 2800, strong GM from Russia against Anton Filippov from Uzbekistan, rated 2615, not a beginner to chess at all, a GM. There we go. Grischuk plays 1d4, and we reach, after these moves, knight f3, bishop b4 check, the Bogo Indian defense, and white has here a choice to put the bishop here, to put the knight here. It would be strange to put the knight here, but still an option, I guess. Grischuk chose to put the knight on d2, black castles, and after a3, both taking and retreating, which was what Filippov played, are valid options, very theoretical of course. Now black is allowing white to have a strong center with these three central pawns, c4, d4, e4, but in exchange white has a awkwardly looking c1 bishop which cannot be developed in a single move. The knight on d2 is blocking it, and black has the immediate d5 to try to fight a little for the center, creating a little bit of counterattack. After e5, knight f d7. This knight is supporting both c5 and f6, breaks, and very similar, I think, to the French defense. Now white chose to play bishop d3, c5 seems very natural, and here, according to my database, I'm not an expert in this opening at all, h4 is a rather serious choice for white, and white is trying to go for the checkmate very quickly with maneuvers like knight g5, queen h5. An interesting move here. But Grischuk chose to play another move, very logical as well, queen c2, developing the queen, targeting h7 right away. Black plays just h6, and Grischuk castles, developing his pieces, both players. Knight to c6, knight to b3, logical move. Now white bishop on c1 can be developed, and this knight is guarding a couple of important dark squares here in the center, c5, d4. C takes d4, played black, and Grischuk just keeps developing instead of taking back, which would be hanging the e5 pawn. He just defends that vulnerable pawn with the rook and the knights. This pawn is not going anywhere, so even if black develops pieces and protects it, white has enough compensation so far, even if he doesn't get the pawn back immediately. He keeps developing pieces, overprotecting this weak and important e5 pawn. I think Nimzowitsch would be proud of Grischuk here. a5 makes sense to try to get rid of this knight, send him back to an awkward square. Rook a d1, simple development. White keeps developing his pieces to optimal squares, and black plays knight c5, exchanging a somehow awkward knight of him on d7, which was blockading the c8 bishop. And there it goes, knight takes, queen takes, and Grischuk goes to e2. Now rook to d8, and Grischuk decides it is time to try something with h4. Not sure if objectively it's the best option, but it's a very valid option here, as white has all the development in the world. Center may be a little bit shaky, but never mind. He's not doing anything that crazy, so h4 it can't be a mad move here. And certainly Filippov feels intimidated, it seems, with h4, as he plays king to f8. He certainly knows all these knight g5 ideas, I guess, that white has to checkmate, so he takes his cautions. He's a KG. He goes to f8 with the king. Rook to c1, putting the rook on the c file. Queen goes to b6, and after c takes, e takes. You may stop the video for a second and try to ask yourself what would you play here as white in this position, as here we got the beginning of a brutal sequence of attack here. A very beautiful combination of attacking chess. You can't almost see, if you're not a GM, I guess, all what's going on here, but of course Alexander Grischuk is a super strong grandmaster, and he sees the really brutal move, knight g5, out of absolutely basically nowhere, an astonishing piece sacrifice to open up lines against this king, taking advantage that most pieces are out of this king side and will not be able to be helpful in the defense. Well, what happens if h takes? We're gonna see it, because this is what happened in the game. Queen h5 with the simple idea of checkmating black in one move. So the king must escape, but going towards the center where white has a pawn, has a rook on the e-file, doesn't seem a great idea. And now white moves, white pieces are coming as rockets against black kings. This is an absolute siege with a very sad end for black. e6, this pawn is pinned, cannot take, and white is threatening once again a checkmate on f7. So bishop must take, but remember this pawn is pinned, so very simply rook takes e6. And material is not important here. White is just going for the quick checkmate, so even if black takes the bishop on f4, white doesn't care at all. He puts the bishop on f5, very subtle move, controlling the very important d7 square with the bishop. And what's the point of this move? Well, let us see. If black makes just like a wasting time move like a4 something, this is forcing checkmate as queen h8 check, only move, king to d7, and white rook takes on c6, this covered check with the bishop. This rook is protected with the c1 rook, and black king is checkmated. The game is over. Okay, Filippov saw this. He didn't want to be checkmated right away. He plays g6, but this is all full of fireworks. Grischuk just can't stop. He just sacrifices another piece. Rook takes g6. Really a brutal attack. I think one of the most beautiful we've seen so far in the Olympiad. And of course, once again, if f takes g6, this is leading to forced checkmate after queen takes, king f8 only move, and bishop e6, f7 checkmate is going to follow in no time. So after rook takes g6, black just plays queen c7, but of course there is no salvation here for black. Simple move, rook e1, bringing the other rook into the action, pinning this bishop. And here black had enough, but he didn't resign. He just allowed white to checkmate him in a beautiful way. He took on g6, allowing this checkmating combination. Queen h8 check, king f7, and the final blow, bishop e6, game over. Checkmate in only 28 moves. Very beautiful and brutal force here. Alexander Grischuk checkmating Anton Filippov from Uzbekistan in 28 moves out of nowhere, sacrificing in this case 2 pieces to just get the black king into the grave. Thanks for watching.